right, let's start. Okay. Oh, hi. How are you, Dinesh? Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Promise, for letting me run the show now. I think I'm going to start with last week's quote. I believe this is still true. Anyone disagree? No? Hopefully what we learned last week about TypeScript might have helped you guys a little bit more to maybe reduce a little bit bugs rather than while you write with JavaScript. So today we'll do pretty much the same. Implement the things that we learned last week about TypeScript into a React project. So let's start. Again, just about today's session. And these are the things that we'll go through. So just a bit of introduction, setting up a React project with TypeScript by default. So basically scaffolding a new React TypeScript project. We'll be building a simple post app that will be able to read posts from an API, from a placeholder, a fake API for now. And while building that app, what we'll do is we'll learn all the basic things about TypeScript that we learned last week. So it's mostly how to give types, how do we write, how do we use object types, some things like interfaces, type alias. And lastly, we'll also see how we can migrate a JS project within React to a TypeScript. So that's mostly the agenda that we have for today. So today, this session is not going to be about a fully deep dive into how React works and all of those things. It's mostly about learning about how we can implement or use TypeScript in React. So just kind of like a recap maybe from last week for those who were here. Why was the TypeScript developer so confident? Can anyone guess?
Because it can detect errors like in the runtime.
Yeah. Any more answers?
It's actually dad jokes.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be funny, so I'm not sure how funny it is. So yeah, because they know all the types of relationships, right? So that's what we learned last week about types. So first of all, about React, basically a JavaScript library for rendering user interfaces, UI. The whole concept is around components, making small components and reusable components as much as we can, obviously maintained by Facebook or Meta now. There have been many frameworks on top of React. For example, some of the popular ones are Next.js, Remix, Gatsby. Can anyone tell who actually created React? Does anyone know? Yeah, like the person who actually wrote React.js. Who created React. Any more? Yes? No? Okay. This is not super important. Just wanted to see if anyone knows, because I didn't know. For a long time actually. Yeah. So everybody thinks Dan Abramov, because he's quite popular. He currently left React team, but anyways, he's quite popular in React. He was one of the most important core member of React team, but the person who actually created React was someone called Jordan Walk. Just wanted to share that, but not important to know to get job, by the way. So anyways, why are we learning TypeScript? So basically pretty much the same what we discussed last time. It's all about having good project to maintain in a long-term long run. Better error detection helps you catch bugs early while you're writing, while you're in the development phase. A lot of things, stronger collaboration. It would be easy to understand someone else's code, and a lot of features, especially when you're using tools like VS Code, because it has good integration with such tools, and that gives you a lot of autocomplete options and informations. So yeah, so in the survey, and one of the categories which was about most popular web frameworks and technologies, and this year also React is quite still popular. So let's see what are the ways to install or scaffold the React project in TypeScript. Some of the available methods are, if you're going with one of the most popular build tool, which is CRA, short form for Create React App. There's another more new kid on the block, I would say, Vit. It's getting quite popular, and today I'll be using Vit to scaffold the React with a TypeScript project. If you want to check out, it's really cool. Basically, CRE is kind of getting not maintained as before, so it's better if you start learning Vit. That's also quite good. And there are frameworks on top of React, but we're not going to go onto them. So the command that you can use for, if you want to still go with CRE, create React app. So basically npx create React app command, your name of the app, and all you need to do is you need to specify a template saying TypeScript. So that will scaffold a new project with in TypeScript rather than in JavaScript, and it automatically has all the compiler and everything ready for you. So for Vit, we'll just do npm or ran yarn anything, one of the package manager, and then create Vit lattice. So in this one, what it does is it usually asks you multiple questions, couple of questions, whatever you want to select. So we'll see how we can have TypeScript during this Vit installation. And for next is it's pretty much the same. Even though we haven't written any template specifically, it will automatically ask you while running the command. So just the basic, we saw the compiler for a TypeScript project last week, and this one's a bit more about in React. As you can see that there are things like library like DOM iterable, all of these things basically tells how we can compile TypeScript files. Yeah, so I think we pretty much covered this. What will be covered, we'll be doing a simple post app, where we'll look how to use types, how to give types to, let's say, hooks or variables, how we'll build components, functional components, and prop types, and all those things. Yeah. So again, this is just a simple app. We'll use the JSON plus holder API, and we'll play with the post endpoint, and these are the things that we'll look into. So yeah, let's start. But before that, one more question. Why did the React developer get locked up of their house? Can anyone guess? Yeah, exactly. Who was the person? Yeah, that's good. So they forgot to bring the keys. We'll see where does the key come later. If you guys are not familiar with the key in React.
Just want to make sure guys, we all have internet. We might need internet to start the query. Yeah, everybody connected to internet. Okay. And one more request: if I turn this light on, will you guys still see properly? Can you see it or no?
Yes.
I wonder you guys gonna fall in sleep with that. So if it's hard to see, then we can still turn it up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. looks big enough. So let's create a folder called social hosts app. And as I mentioned, you can go with CRA. The only thing you would need to do is npx create React app. Since we are already inside the folder, I'll just do period dot, and you can write template and TypeScript. So this will scaffold a React project in using TypeScript. But today, let's try vid. So in vid, all we'll do is create vid. I can probably do lattice as well. Oops, the first thing. What's it saying with command failed? Let me just do. Probably didn't take the latest for some reason. Anyway, since I'm already inside the project, sorry, the folder, I'll just do this. And vid is not just for React. So the founders, the creators of Vue.js, those people are the responsible for creating vid, which is a bundler tool, and it's mostly used in Vue, but they also have. It's very popular that they have expanded and they have provided the solution out of the Vue, and now you can see you can use Vue vid in vanilla, Vue, React, and other frameworks. So for now, we'll just go with React. I'll just use simple TypeScript for now. You can either go JavaScript as well, but let's just use TypeScript. And yeah, I think that installed, or I mean scaffolded my app. Okay. If you still want to follow, either you can do npm or yarn, anything, and then this command latest. If anyone is still struggling, yeah. Sorry.
Facing issues? It is not just going up and down. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, if you have any more questions, just let us know. But for now, maybe we can move on. Okay, maybe. Right. So, anyway, so even if you use CRA or vid, no matter, the folder structure will be pretty much the same. In the source app, we usually have all of our files that are needed to run it. For example, though some difference, there might be very couple of small differences between while using CRA or vid. For example, in CRA, you might have seen index.js. Here, we will have something called main instead of index. So this is our main entry point. And the others, it's pretty much the same. You might have already seen after.js. So we have TSX. So we're getting this red lines. We just need to install now yarn, and I'll install all my dependencies. or if you're using npm, then you can just follow npm install. Yep, npmi, that works. Just few more time to install the dependencies. Yeah, yeah, looks like it's done now. So you can see all of our packages have been installed, and they all go to Node modules. So source main. So
How to install all the packages in npm? Just write
npm install. Yeah, just be inside that folder, and then you can have npm install, and that should work. Yeah. So in CRA, you might have already seen index.js. The difference is now all of our files will be in TypeScript, and the extension is for React components. It's usually TSX. That's the standard convention, and you can see instead of index.js, because I'm using Vite, we have main.tsx, but it doesn't really matter. You can rename it to index.js as well. Sorry, index.tsx. So now let's run this app. To run, if I look at my packagization, all I need to do is run this script, which is dev. So let me run yarn dev. Yeah. So we have our app now running in this address, which is localhost 5173. So it doesn't use 3000, like 3000, but rather okay, let me know if it's too small. Cool. So yeah, so we have our app now running in localhost 5173. This is how it looks in the beginning. Today we'll not focus too much on the CSS part, as we're here to just learn mostly about using TypeScript now. So first of all, let's go to app.tsx and remove all of these things. So what I'll do is and I will just say one maybe hello dented code. Let me remove this. Yeah, so for now I've just rendered to say that we need an header one, and we just have text called hello dented code. So first of all, let's look into the types. Sorry, what was that?
How does it center the main?
That's because this Vite configuration, they already have set up some specific CSS file. You can see here, over here, and then this index.csx. So this is how it's entered. And right now, I'm not going to remove it, because if I remove it, everything will look very blank. Might look a bit ugly, so I'll just leave it for now. Yeah, cool. So first of all, let's just look at this thing. Last week we already learned about types, basic types, and then inference. So even though one of the first, maybe let's see how we can give type to this count state. So we want it to be as a number, right? So if I hover over it, I'll probably say and let's render that count. If I hover over it, you can see that it's typed as any, right? And we don't want that. What we want now is we want to give type. So what we can do is, in this use state, we can write angle bracket like this, and inside here we can give type. So if I want this to be just a number, so I can come here and say number. So now if I hover over it, oh, why is it still number?
You have to import in this test.
Huh? Oh, sorry. Thank you, promise. Alright, so useState is now imported, and if I hover over it, you can see the type of this count variable or state is a number or undefined, and that's undefined is because I haven't provided, I haven't initialized this state with anything. It's empty right now, that's why it's undefined. But let's say if I initialize it with a number called maybe 0 for now, and if you look at it, you can see the type is a number.
Turn up the web, I have to see.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good? Better?
Maybe increase the font size a little bit.
Okay,
One step, yeah. One step.
cool. Right, so yeah, and then you can see there's 0 being rendered already there. So this is how you give types to a state. Let's say if you're using a hook in React, for example, for this use state. If I want to have, in the similar way, if I want to have a name and then say set name is equal to use state. Now if I hover over it again, this is undefined at the moment because we haven't given any type to it. So if I want this to be string, similar thing, so angle bracket string, the name will be now typed as string or undefined, and undefined because we haven't initialized anything. If I initialize with dented or dented, then the type is now just string and it's not undefined anymore because we have initialized the value with some initial value which is a string. But it comes back to inference, what we discussed last week, that TypeScript is smart enough to understand some of the types based on the values that we provide, right? So even though if I remove string here, you can still see the type of the variable called name, const name, is still string here, and that's because based on the value that we provide in the beginning, it will automatically know its type. So similarly, I can remove the type here as well, and it will still be number. So this is inference. This is called inference, that it can infer based on some of the facts. So now that we know basic types, how do we give types in a hook, let's probably start building our simple post app. And while we're gonna go through it, we're gonna see how to use how to create components, pass prop types, how to use interface and type alias and all those things. So for this, we'll be using JSON placeholder API, and yeah, we'll just simply fetch data using fetch, and we'll use the endpoint called posts. Okay, so first of all, now that we want to, here what we want is, in this page we want to display the list of posts, right? So maybe in the beginning, let's just do in this same app. So what I need is, first of all, I need a function to fetch all of the apps, right? Or even before that, maybe let's just do a simple, without actually going and fetching all that post, let's just do it manually for now. So I'll copy this. Oops. This one post for now. So I'll name it as post. If I copy this, right, so this is a post. We just created an object with some of the keys, user ID, title, and body. you can already see the type here as well. So const post, it already infers itself. So based on the fact what we have provided, for example, the first two are numbers, user ID and ID, and the second two are string. So it can automatically infer and say this post is of type of an object where these are the keys and these are the data types, for example, number and string. Now let's say here we go and create a one section where we'll display that post, and we'll call it, let's say here stu, and say these are the posts, and here we'll just render that the first post here. So I'll just create a div for now, and I will say post dot. Yeah, so this is the benefit of using TypeScript. If you have just worked only on JavaScript, you might have already noticed that when you would do something like instead or a variable or an object dot, you wouldn't see these values, right, these keys. But using TypeScript, this is one of the benefit. And let's say I just want to render title for now. Let me remove comment this for now. Count. Yeah, so as you can see here, we manually kept one post, and then we render post the title, and that's the post, that's the title. So similarly, let's say I want to render body now, and there you go. It looks a little bit ugly now. So maybe let's just, for now, since we're not focusing on CSS, it's mostly about using TypeScript. So let's just do a simple inline CSS for now, and I'll say for now flags to be column, and then I'll just put a gap, which is so, but it is style, let's say this is a S3 and this is a p tag. I think I need to turn my format. Yeah, this is it's not just giving me auto format, so I'm just turning on my format, automatic format for now. Yeah, just helps me to automatically format my code. So yeah, as you can see here, let's just do 10. Oh, it's too big. I think this p tag and s tag already has some margins, so it should be fine for now. Let's do span because it's the difference is too big. Looks good now. Okay, so this is our one post, where we're basically saying we'll render title and body. So now, rather than having this code here, which basically says we want to render title and body itself, what we can do is now we can create this, create a component, a reusable component. For now, it looks very small, but let's imagine if it gets too big, then it's not good to have everything within the same file. So what we can do here is, first of all, let me also put some border. Yeah, and also maybe padding. So border, I'll just put border radius 5 pixel. Okay, this looks better now. Right, so this is one post. What if we have multiple posts? So rather than having this as a simple one post, I'll make this an object. Sorry, I'll make this an array with another post. And let's just say this is the same for the same user, just a different post. So I'll just update this, and let's say this is a new post. So now we have some error because previously it was just one object, single object, but now this is an array with multiple objects. So in JavaScript, obviously it wouldn't give you an error here saying, hey, title wouldn't doesn't exist, right? You wouldn't get that message. But if you're using TypeScript, then this is another benefit that you instantly see that error, and then you can identify, okay, this is where it's wrong, now I need to go and fix it. So let's say one way is if you want some specific post to see, for example, we already saw the first one, and now we'll look at the second one. And you know, in JavaScript array, the starting index is always 0, so I'll put it here 1 because I want to see the second post. So if I look here, now we'll see another post, which is new post rather than the previous one. But let's say I want to see all the posts. So what we can do is we will come here and then map over this array, which is post. So I'll convert, since this is a post of multiple objects, so let me make it as an posts. So what I'll do here now is, so I'll just say posts dot what do you think I can use here to make a loop? And yeah, so there's something called for each, but that wouldn't work because it doesn't return anything. So that's why we need to use map here. Yeah, and I'll give the first value. You can also see this value already gives you a type as well, which will have user ID, ID, and all those things. So how does it know? Because we are using TypeScript, and it will automatically infer from here. So since this post is an array of this object, whatever the first value that you get here, let's rename it to be, for now, just a post. This post contains all of that object, which is user ID, ID, title, body, and this one. And the way to use this is this one. So I'll just now render here. So now I can remove, because we were previously targeting to render the second position of the post, but now since we're already in the loop, I can just remove it. Right, so you can see this, right? Do you think is there any, it's not a big problem, but do you think there's still some small problem here in this code? Yes, no? Come on, Ronis. Because we're using map, we're looping over posts array. Remember the previous joke about keys, right? So if we're in React, if you're looping over an array, and then if you're rendering something like this, for example, div here, we always need to use key. You will also see that you will also see some errors on your browser itself. It's probably saying there's some key issue. Yeah. So for example, this one, each child in a list should have a unique key, right? Since we haven't provided that. So if I do, so what can I use as my key? Most people, I mean, in the beginning, we think that all we need to do is we need to provide a unique value, right, to a key. So one way we can do is have index here. I think it is over here, or probably inside. Anyways, so you get index, and index always starts with 0, I think. Yeah, so you could use index, but this is not considered a good practice in React, because let's say your array, you're either sorting or you're deleting something, and since the values inside change, the index also changes. So React wouldn't know which object is unique in comparison to previous value, right? That's why we shouldn't use index as key. So what we'll do is we'll use one of the unique value from here. So generally, you will pretty much know it's usually the ID that are unique. So yeah, and removing that, my the error or that we saw on the browser console also, it goes away because we're now satisfying the React rule, which is we're providing key, right? So this is a post. Now it's starting to get a little bit bigger, right? So what we'll do is we'll now create a new post, just which will display one single post, and we'll see how we can now use prop types. But before that, let me just add one more CSS here so that it looks a little bit better. Flex direction, column, and output gap, so that looks, so that the posts they're not attached with each other. Maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, looks better. Cool. So let's see how we can create a separate component just for one post. So if I come here, in source, maybe let's create a folder called components and a file called postcard.tsx, and that's the standard naming convention. And here I will first need to export, because we need to import this file in our app file. Default function postcard, and for now let me return, say this is the postcard. All right, so let's see by importing this postcard. So before post, I will come here and say postcard. It automatically gives me the suggested file name. Just let me import that. Right, so you can see now this is the postcard, and that's coming from postcard. So since we want to make this postcard this div, I will just copy this, and here let me, oh, what happened? Supposed to copy this. Yeah, right. Okay, so what information do we need to render a postcard? We need ID, we need title, we need body. And for now, we haven't created any types for a single post, right? So it's always better to create a type. For now, let's just create a type here. So one way to do is, it is either you can just type post to be a type alias, or you can do interface. It's up to you. I will simply copy this. Okay, so I already have this. And now I know that I'll create a type alias called post, where I will have keys called user ID, title, and body. And now let's start giving the types. This should be a number. This should also be a number. this can be string, and this can be string. Right, so this is a post, but we'll be using this post all over this alias, this type alias. We'll use it in multiple places. So rather than putting it here, what I can do is it's always better to modularize all of your functions or your components. So let's create another folder called types, and here I'll just say post.ts, because this is not a React component. This is just simply a file where we will have all the type aliases or interfaces related to post. So I just name it ts instead of js now. So let me copy this, paste it here. Let me export here. Right. Oops. Okay, so we also could have given types to this, because we already know that this array consists of an object which is like this type. So what we learned last week is the way to give types is say post, and I'll import this. It's imported from types post, and since this is an array, I could do this and it will automatically satisfy here as well. But we are now focusing on how to write the prop types. Let's see in JavaScript how we would do it. So but for now, let's see. Okay, so since we have this, we'll say we need ID, we need title, and we need body. And I can remove this now. Post yeah, that's TypeScript compiling that they don't have types, but that's okay for now. So post card, I'll come here. So since we already mentioned that this component should expect, or we should pass these props, which is ID, title, and body. If we were to use just a normal JavaScript React project, then obviously we wouldn't see this red line warning, right, saying something is complaining here, right? So this is why, again, that what we mentioned about in the previous slide about saying that better early error detection. So we can already see this complaining and saying postcard is missing some of the types, which is ID, title, and body. So one way I could do this is so if I press Ctrl and space, it automatically gives me all the properties that I need to pass. So let's start with ID, post.id, title is equal to post.title, and body is again same post.body. So now TypeScript is happy, right? We don't see that error. We missed another important thing, which is key. So let's just rename it as. So this is pretty much what we do in JavaScript as well, basically. But now, what would be the problem with it? The problem is, since we don't have any types for these things, I could be passing anything. So instead of ID, which expects a number, or let's do for title, which expects, it should be expecting a string, but since we haven't given any type to these properties, I can basically come and pass a number as well, right? And it still doesn't give us any error. So how can we make this better? So in TypeScript, one way to do this is I already know these are my property types, which is we're passing as an object. So one way is copy this and then define types for each of those properties. So come here, colon, and then same thing. Now I'll say this should be number, title should be string, string, and body should also be string. Right? So you can see, and this is how we now give prop types to in TypeScript React project. The benefit is now you can instantly see here that warning. So it's saying that because title is supposed to have just this property title is supposed to have string, but then since we're passing number, it's complaining, right? So this is how you catch bugs in your early phase, and I'll just pass the title, and this should work. But also, this doesn't look too better, right? Because what if once our app keeps on growing and we need to add more and more property types? It just doesn't look too good here, right? So to make it a little bit, to manage it properly, we'll be using, we could be using type alias, what we learned last week, or interface. Let's do type alias for now. So I'll say type postcard props, because it's supposed to, this is basically referring what are the property types for this component. So I'll just rename it postcard props is equal to this same thing here, command X, and paste this. Now, so instead of directly writing it over there, I'll just pass this postcard props, and this looks much better. So we'll just manage whatever any property types separately as a type alias, and whenever we need to add, we'll just keep add there and extract from here. But also at the same time, you might have noticed these things are already repeatable here, because we have already defined a post type alias which contains all of these things, and we are writing this again. So what can we do? We learned some of the things that maybe we could use here. Does anyone want to say?
Utilities.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of writing it again, what we can do is use a utility type. Maybe first of all, I'll just type post, right? So right now, if you hover over it, we're basically passing all the types from post to postcard props. So that means we should be passing ID. What did we miss? User ID as well. But we're not supposed to, we don't really care about user ID here for now. So what we'll do is we use pick. The way to use it is wrap it in angle bracket. The first argument should be the type, already existing type, and so from here we need ID, and since we want multiple types from there, I can do vertical pipe and then body. So if I hover it now, it contains only idle title body because we're picking those keys from that post. So that means it doesn't complain anymore, and this is better because now which means we didn't have to rewrite all that writing the whole postcard props type alias again, defining the type, saying ID number, title string. We didn't have to do all of these things. We could simply use TypeScript's utility feature. So this is possible because we're in React TypeScript project. Right, cool. So now that we have a simple postcard component, type alias defined there, and we also rendered two posts that we wrote it from here, but let's actually call the fetch API, fetch just a placeholder API, and then render all the posts here. So for that, again, we could write everything here, but let's also see best practices on how to manage your files. So maybe I'll just create a folder called helpers, and create a file called fetch post.ts TypeScript, and we'll basically use this very simple example. Where did it go? Here. So let me export this function called fetch post, and call this JSON placeholder API, which rather than to do, since we're now dealing with posts, it should be post. Okay, let me use a single wait here instead. So first of all, I'll put it into the response. This should be wait async function, and let's convert this response dot just so, and then we'll return data whatever we come here. So right now we see that this simple function returns a promise of anything, right? We don't know what it is, but we'll see later how we can also give types to these functions, and also see how we can properly handle what kind of type, what kind of data we will get. So rather than any, we'll see how we can do that. So since I already have this fetch post, which should fetch all of the posts from JSON placeholder API, let's come here and use it. So in React, what can we use to fetch data? Anyone?
Use effect.
Yep. Let's do that. So first of all, let's maybe create a state to store all of our posts, because right now we manually wrote some of the posts here, but let me comment this out. We don't need this, and I will instead say post set posts equal to use that. Again, this is undefined, so what do you think we should do here? Yep, so we'll create an angle bracket and we'll use post. This is either post or undefined. You could initialize this state with some initial value, but for now we don't want to do that, and we'll handle it separately. What can you do there instead? So cool. Also, sorry, this post shouldn't be just a single post, because right now we're saying that this state is simply a post, but rather than it should be an array of posts, right? So we'll just do this. Okay, so let's say use effect, and obviously we want it to we'll give it an empty as an array dependency, because we want it to run only once. Now let's create a function which will call this function called fetch post, and once we get that data, we'll use set post to put the value there. So let's say get post. Let me use function post, and I'll say const data is equal to fetch post. Wait. Yeah, and then we'll say once we get the data, we'll just set the data into there. So for now, we're not handling any error or try catch or anything. Let's just keep it simple. So I'll call get post here. Right. Oops. Cool. So let's see if it works or not, and we have some error. Yeah, that's because obviously we're saying that post, we gave a type to this state, but since we didn't initialize with anything, it's always undefined in the beginning, right? And this is what it's complaining, and we also don't see anything in our browser. It's this. So what we'll do here is we'll first check post.length. If it doesn't exist, oops, then let's just return a p tag saying posts are loading. Right, did you see that? For a split of second, we were able to see that loading information. Oops, it's too fast. Is that visible enough for everyone? Or we could use set timeout. And I want it to wait 2 seconds. Let me bring this inside. Also bring it here. At 2000. Let me put it here first. And call all of this here. And yeah, we can see that now. Let's make it 1 second. Okay, so what we did is, even though we gave type, we didn't initialize it with anything, so post could be undefined in the beginning. So what we did is, if there is no, we check the length of that array, because post is an array, so there's a property in JavaScript where we can check the length, which basically we're saying that if it's 0 or less, 0, we want to show that some information that they are loading. But if it's there, then it will just render all of these things. I think even if we don't do this, what happens? Let me try. Yeah, it will still work if I just make it optional setting in JavaScript, saying if there is a post, then map and then display this information, right? So we didn't have to do this. But then the good thing about this is we're also showing some information about the loading state, which is good. Cool. And since if your code reaches up to here, we know that there will always be something existing. So I can remove this optional setting. I don't need it. And also the difference is, if you hover over it, you could see that this state could also be undefined, but when I come down here and then hover over it, you don't see that undefined, because what we're doing is we have already checked that pass, right? So TypeScript knows that since we already said if this could be an undefined, we already written something, which means the only reason or the only time when the code will come up to here is there will always be something here. That's why you don't see undefined here. Okay, so now you can see all of the posts from the API, but also at the moment we don't have any type. Let's say, for instance, just for you have a requirement where you need to access something from this data and then probably change. Let's say for now I wanted to get title here, right? And then probably in that title I wanted to add something, right? But I don't see here any at the moment, right? Because this data could be anything. The TypeScript doesn't know at the moment. So let's see how we can provide types to this fetch post function. So what we can do here is similar to how we give types to a variable. We'll just put colon, and it's already at the moment is promise of any, right? Like we saw before. Even if you remove this, you can still see that it returns a promise of anything. But instead of that, instead of saying any, we'll say that, what do you think should be here? Yep, exactly. So it's post, but also it should be an array. So now if you look here, it's saying that this function should always return a promise of an array of post. And also we can also give type to here as well if we want, but array, sorry. Yeah, so the benefit here is if you come over here and you see, you can instantly see the type. And if I want to access something, then since this is an array, first I need to, let's say, to this. Probably I'll just do 0 for now. You can also see all the available things. So these are, that's how you give type to your functions, return type for the functions. Cool. So we saw this about fetching. Now let's add a form where we will have simple 2 input fields, title and body, and then we will add that form. And during that, we can see how we can also give types to event listeners, or also to form submit. Let's see how we can use TypeScript there as well. So let me remove this. Okay, so let's create another form here, and another component above this. So, and let's rename that post form. So I'll just quickly write a simple default function post form return, and it will simply return a post. It's a simple form, and we will have here input. For now, let's just do 2 inputs without anything. So if I come here and say post form, you should see this. Let's make it a little bit better. Same. Oh, sorry, I'm not in using class. Let's just use inline style. Display flex column cap 20 pixel, and let's also put some margin bottom so right, and maybe let's also keep some type style to this. It's very simple. Padding maybe like so. This should be enough. Yeah, as long as it's visible, should be all right. And let me copy this, and then maybe symbol button. Say save. Cool. Yep. Okay, so first of all, let's just start getting the value of these 2 input fields, put it in implement the onChains, and then let's just do form submit without actually saving it. So for this, sorry, not email, it should be title, set title, use that body, set body, use that again, this is undefined, so let me just initialize with empty strings. So this now should be type of string and type of string. Let's give the value here. So this should be title, and this should be body. But now I'm not able to write anyone. Placeholder, enter title, let's say. We can see the placeholder, but still we're not able to write anything. What do you think we should implement here? Sorry? Anyone?
Define the value, specific value, then do on change.
Yep. So we just said that the value should be this test, but we didn't implement the onChange. Basically, whenever you type something, we need to grab that and then store it into this using the set title, so that whenever there's an update on the title, you instantly see this, right? So we need to do the onChange. So here onChange, very similar to how you would do in JavaScript. We basically get onChange gives us an event, which I'll probably say event. And then we know that whenever we type something, we always get the value on something called event.target.value. So this is a place which contains whatever we type there over in this field. So we can simply get that value and then use in set title. So set title and then say event.target.value. And now if I come here and say React post, it's working. What we basically did is we implemented the onChange, which means that from this event extract the value called which lies in this object event.target.value, and then update it in this state called title using set title action. And let's do similar thing. Or I mean, this is enough, but also let's say, what if we want to create an outside function rather than directly writing this? So we can come here and say function handle, say handle set title, and I will try to do the same thing. Set title, so this should contain event, and I can pass it here. Sure, I should be pass it here. So this is okay, and this will also be able to help us change, but then we don't. TypeScript gives us just a warning and saying that, hey, this parameter called event has any type. So how can we give type to such events? Anyone? How do you think we can give type to this event, which basically comes from this onChange of input, HTML input element? Yeah, so this event is of type called change event handler. And one way to do it is it's very similar to how we, for example, if I write it before. So basically, if you hover over it, you can already see that the type of this E, which says that parameter E or event, whatever you name it, should be of type called React.change event, and the element that you pass inside. So let's say if I was doing this exact same thing in checkbox, then it would be probably HTML checkbox element. If it was select, then it would be select. But now since it's an onChange of input element, so it will be HTML input element. So all I can do is simply copy this and come here and then pass this here. And now React will be happy. sorry, TypeScript, and also I can remove this. And if I come here and type, it will work. It still works. Yeah, so the benefit is obviously you can also see not just value but a lot of other things that this event or this target has. Cool, so let's do the similar thing for body as well quickly. Oh sorry, I just need this too. For this one, let's just do here. So E should be set body target dot value and should be enter body. Yep, this is working. Now let's try to submit this form. If I click on save, oh, it's getting refreshed. Anyone? Why do you think it's getting refreshed?
It's a default behavior of form.
Yep, that's correct. Because by default, whenever we submit something, we're basically rendering this whole thing refreshing. So what we can do is we can, we usually should avoid this behavior because we don't want it to, we don't want it to be fully refreshed, right? So let's create a function which will say handle submit, and we'll say again this should contain event because we want some kind of event to be prevented. But for now, I don't know what's the type to give this for this event or for this parameter called event. So I'll just leave it for now. So let's come here and say on the submit of this form, I want to call handle submit, right? So before we used the event of onChange property of input element, but now what we're doing is we are we're trying to do this in the onSubmission. So I think onSubmit kind of should have the same thing. If I exit here, oops, React dot form event. Yeah, so now if I come here and because I want to avoid that rendering, so event dot you instantly see, right? Before when it wasn't typed, it didn't give us all of this information. So I'll say prevent default, and we can remove this now, right? So if I come here and save, it doesn't refresh our page like before. Also, let me just keep type of this button as submit. You have multiple options. It could be just a button, it could be a reset, but for now let's just put submit, and yep, that still works. So now what we'll do is we have already implemented this form, given types to this. Since we initialized with empty string, it already has typed as empty string. We also gave type to two events, change event and for form event. Now we'll do the similar as before, calling the fetch JSON placeholder API, but now we'll do this for making a post request. So here I will create a new, say, called save post.ts. Very similar to how fetch post works. Let me delete this. Oops. Save post p. So let's rename the file, save post. Let's remove this thing for now because I don't know what the return type will be. So let's remove this. Let's comment this out. And so to post, it should be post. Let's see. So the method is post and post. So all we need to do here is come here and say method as post, and we also need to pass some kind of whatever we type, right? A title and a body. So let's say it should be a body, and I'll just say post body for now. So let's give this type to post body, but I also need to do just a stringify and then just say post body. So let's create a post body, and it should be post body, same as before. We're just giving a type now. It should have title, as string, and it should have a body as string. Right, so this post body is a parameter that we're going to pass to this SavePost function, and we're just going to make a post request to JSON placeholder API. So let's go to post form here. So post body, should be SavePost. Yeah, again, the same thing, the benefit, we instantly see this error, and it also gives us information about what kind of things was not provided. So it's expecting a title and a body, but we're not passing anything. So I could do either, I can just pass it like this, an object, and it automatically shows me what are the things, comma, body, right? And this should work. Also, another important thing to notice here, this is working right now because we have the same name for the keys that it's expecting, which is title and body, and also the state. So, but for example, if it was say my title, let's say, and it was my body, then obviously it wouldn't work. It's now saying that it should be my title and my body string, but then we're trying to pass title. So what we can do here is say my title, and here we should pass this title state. So we can say title and my body. Here we'll pass body, and this should just save it. So let's see what it will return. Data is equal to weight, and let's just make it async function, and for now let's just make it alert. Let's see. Cool, this should work. Let's see. Oops. Let's also see on the network request. Is it too big? Okay, should be okay. Right, so let's enter saying title React, and say we are learning TypeScript. Cool. So you see post endpoint, and it's too bad here. Does it not return anything? It should return anything. It's not just returning anything for me. Let's do save post. Okay. Yep, and save it. Okay, so it returns an ID for the post that was currently added. So I think what it does is, by default, the JSON placeholder API has only 100 length of data. That's why the new ID is 101. Even though I keep on typing another new post, it always returns 101, I believe. Yeah, because it's not actually storing this data anywhere. It's just a fake API for testing. So yeah, I think, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, in the same thing here, see how we had to write this whole type again. We could pretty much do the same thing like before. So instead of saying pick, now maybe let's just use omit and say post, and here I wouldn't need ID and I wouldn't need post ID. Sorry, it should be user ID. And yep, because I changed my yeah, and this should work. Also, what else? Instead of directly putting here, you could have probably just created a new type alias, or maybe even an interface saying post body should be, it should be extends post body, and we'll just use it here, body, and it's a type of post body. Yep, this is also working. Basically what we learned last week about extending interface, similar to what we did with pig. We're using omit, and then since we're not passing anything other than this whatever we're omitting from post, since this is interface, we still need to provide an empty object like that. I think that's pretty much it. What else do we have?
We can also
Types.
add the return type for this function, which is the ID.
Yeah. So since we know that it returns an object where the key is ID and then the type is the number, so we can pretty much do the same thing here. So instead of saying, if you look over here, again, returns promise of could be anything, right? So so here, oops, it should be colon, and now what do you think I can do here? ID and say number. It is promise of number, so you can already see this one contains it should be an object where the key should be this one. So if I come here and say ID and say let's type something, save, it should alert us with the new ID, which is still the same 101. Yeah, I think we did basic types, type annotation, inference, return types, interface, type alias, components, passing props. What else? Maybe we can show children. Have you guys used children? I mean, not your own children. So let's say, where are we using this? Post form. So inside this post form, let's say I want to call this and also pass something from here, saying maybe span somewhere and say that a new post will be added. Yeah, but right now this post form component doesn't expect or doesn't it doesn't accept any children. Whatever we pass it like this can be, we can say that these are children. So I could be saying not just span, I could pass a lot of different things. I could pass maybe a button here to do something in this parent component, right? So what we'll do is here we'll say this post form should control, can also expect children. And if you look here, it should work. So now what we'll do is we'll just say wherever we want. For example, let's say just on top of here, what we'll say is children. So basically we're saying is we don't care what it comes, right, in this children. You can send anything, and then I'll just render in my component. But let's also give types to this. So as you can see, it's undefined. So what I can do is call this children. And what type do you think I can give to the children? Sorry?
String.
Okay, let's say string. And now we get complaint because we're saying that these children, basically think a children as kind of like a prop, right? For example, an ID could be a number, title could be a string. Similarly, we said that this is a string, but we get the error saying, hey, children prop expects type string, right? But it says only a single child was provided. Only a single child was provided. I don't know. Maybe it requires multiple children.
Basically what it's complaining because inside the post form we are actually giving a React component, which is the section component, and the children. The type of children is the React node, which is actually the another React component.
Yeah. So yeah, looks like it's just expecting string. What if I pass number here? Should still work. But anyways, yeah, as promised said, the best thing to do is not just type it to string, but it could be anything, right? We could be passing an HTML text like this section span, or we could be just passing a number, so it could be anything. So usually what we do is say, rather than saying just a string or a number, we can use something called React node. And it obviously comes from React like before. And here, if I do this, if I remove here, and it doesn't complain. So I can be passing anything as long as React node. And what React node is could be a string, could be a number, could be a boolean, it could be a React element. You can also probably just say rather than React node, I could be using React element like this. There's also something called probably JSX element, I think. No. JSX.
Elements come from JSX. JSX dot element.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, like it said, there are other things, but usually if you could React node, then it automatically covers all of the types. So string, number, boolean, React element, JSX element constructor, React portal, everything. So this is a common way to give type for our children. Yeah, and then you can pass anything here. We did fetch, we did post, interface. I think that's pretty much it, right? Any questions?
So if we give React node, then will it be like any type?
No, it's still a React node. So if you hover over it, we're saying that you can be passed anything, but it's a type of React node. So your question was, what if we pass any?
No, yeah. So is like React node is similar to any type because it's expecting everything. So.
No, React node is actually the React node is actually like it actually expects the React component. So React node is kind of the React component.
I think it's more referring to, does it act as any, because it could be pass, it could be accepting anything, right? But maybe I don't know, let's find out. What if, if we don't pass it anything, works. I cannot pass anything obviously here, because whatever you pass is kind of like an React element in itself. So yeah, maybe, even though it looks like anything, but yeah, it's not actually any. Use basically these types. Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Any questions?
So when we use like Redux, so do we need to define for the dispatch as well? Use dispatch functions? Do we need to give them types?
Yes, you can give types to anything. For a simple example, let's say, because right now we're just, all the props that we had here, which is postcard, for example, are basically just a bunch of primitive types, right? Number and string. Also at the same thing, maybe let's say I need a function, just and also sorry, not here, it should be outside, and yep. So let's say postcard, just for now it could be delete, for example, delete post. So we created one more properties here. Besides ID, title, body, we also want a property called delete post, and it's basically similar to how we said ID and number. It should be a function, and the way we would do is that bracket, arrow function, and then void. Void is because we are not trying to return anything. But let's say here I want to pass the this here I want to pass set post, for example. Now how can I give set post? Is also kind of set action, similar to how it works in as you mentioned in reducer, like a dispatcher. This is also kind of like a dispatcher. So if I hover over it, you can see the type. It's a type of React.dispatch, React the set action, and then since we're defining a post here, it automatically infers and says that this set post should always set an array of post. So since I want this delete post also to do, let's not set delete post, let's say set new post. Also similar to this one, what happens? So if I come here and where's postcard? It's hidden here. So set new post, and if I say set post, see, we're complaining. It already gives us error because we said that this set new post should basically be a normal function. It shouldn't return, it's not expecting anything. It would, if it was expecting something, then we could say ID, and we could have been number, right? We can define any props we want, But what we want is this set new post to accept a type of set post, which is like a, think of this as a dispatch introducer. So since I don't know the type, but I can just hover over it, copy this, and come here. Right, so set new post is now a type of a dispatch, which basically is setting an array of post, or it could also be undefined because we haven't initialized anything. So now you can see it doesn't complain, right? So similarly, obviously, if you're using TypeScript in Redux or Reduce or anything, you can give types in the similar way if you're not sure of what kind of type it is actually expecting. Yeah. Any other questions? No, all good. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What do we have here? Anything at the end? Yeah, so that was this is the last slide. Basically, if you have an existing project which is React in JavaScript, to migrate that into TypeScript, all you need to do is install TypeScript and some of the types. As you could do that as a dev dependency, or you could put it in your own dependency. That's fine. And then you can set up tsconfig.json compiler. One way is we could say tsc init. This also gives you it basically generates a TypeScript compiler file which will have all the default values, but then it will comment out most of the things, so you can just uncomment whatever you need. But for the starting point, as we saw before, this should be more than enough. And lastly, you can start one at a time. So just convert all of your JS files to, let's say, JSX to TSX, and then restart the development server. And whenever there will be probably some errors, just need to find what's the problem is about, and then fix it. So you can do one file at a time. You don't have to do all at once. So that's how you can also migrate your React JS project to TypeScript. That's all. Thank you. If no more further questions, then should be all right. Should be all good.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonam.